Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Canal Days. As always, I'm your host Carrie, along with my co-host, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. Our Canal Days series delves into the vast collection of historical sites throughout Massachusetts, with Robert's expertise of the local history as our personal guide. Each episode, we uncover history throughout local communities, highlighting historic landmarks and remaining relics while uncovering their seminal significance. Today's episode of Canal Days, we'll be learning about the village of Indian Orchard. So, clarify why Indian Orchard is considered its own entity, although technically a part of Springfield.
The reason why it finds itself in that situation is because it has a power canal that was put there and first used in the early 1850s. And that set it apart. It was so far away from any other thing in Springfield at that point that it became a village. It had more in common with Ludlow, that is close by, also with this canal. And they shared worker homes, they shared churches and cemeteries. And so Indian Orchard is a village unto its own, quite distinctive from the rest of Springfield, Massachusetts, which is very big and has a lot of neighborhoods, but they're similar enough to each other that you can call Indian Orchard the most distinctive village or neighborhood inside of Springfield. So
describe the similarities and differences between Indian Orchard and other canal villages.
now if you go on to compare it to other places not in Springfield, you'll find a lot of similarities between these canal villages. The Chicopee Center Canal has worker homes and has mills and has these one power canal. And they're very similar to the Indian Orchard Canal, which is a straight power canal. And they're actually made by the same manager. Charles McClellan made both of them. I don't know if John Chase, who was the person that ran the show, was involved in Indian Orchard. I'm not sure. But Charles McClellan liked straight canals, and he got it. Holyoke Canal, Chicopee Center Canal, Indian Orchard Canal, all very straight. All a lot of worker homes, and a true village with libraries, schools, cemeteries, and churches, just like all these villages. Also similar to Chicopee Falls, which had worker homes, cemeteries, schools. Also similar to Ludlow, right, which had straight canals. And, the same group might have built that too. And same thing, a lot of worker homes in that case, because Ludlow had 5,000 workers for the same company. That's an incredible amount. And so the village was enormous. Church, cemeteries, so forth and so on. Now, next up is some smaller villages. So once you could leave the bigger places, you become quite different.
So stick around and we'll be right back after a quick announcement. Are you fascinated by local history and eager to investigate the obscure treasures off the beaten path throughout the state of Massachusetts? Or maybe just seeking an unforgettable cultural activity for family and friends to enjoy? Look no further than Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, founded by Robert Como. With over a decade of experience, Roberts offers captivating tours and presentations of historic sites and landmarks throughout the state. Whether you're interested in canals, cemeteries, charming churches, or more, Roberts Tours provide a unique and enriching experience for all. And that's not it. You can also schedule private tours tailored to your interests, ensuring a personalized adventure and unforgettable memories. Perfect for families or groups of all sizes, making for an exciting hands-on learning experience that brings history to life. Simply visit holyokecanaltour.org or email bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com to book your private tour today. Getting back to our podcast on the village of Indian Orchard. Reveal any significant locations within the village.
There are quite a few that are nodes of activity, such as the St. Aloysius Church campus, which was a complete campus, even though the school was separated from it by a couple blocks. That's mostly gone. There was also the St. Matthew's Church and other churches, the Indian Orchard Congregational Church. Now, you also had schools, and you also had a library. A library was put there by design, and it was a node of activity fairly close to, well, they had parks there. And they had a Myrtle Street School and park very close together. So these nodes really helped. Then the worker homes, there were 3 general worker home areas. And those areas still have houses on them from 170 years ago. So they're still worker homes. It was not a big mill in terms of the amount of people they hired, but there was always a need to get workers to come here, and most of them had no money, and so worker homes developed. And in a similar vein, you had another park that was more for the middle class, and so they didn't say, oh, you have different class of people, and so you don't need a park. No, they started another park, Cottage Hill Square Grove, an 1850 park started up by the mill company. And over again, you have this situation where these institutions will start up. Now, also in most canal villages, there's going to be a need for a bridge. Every one of the canal villages I mentioned today had a bridge, and then even further upstream, in Wilbraham at the Collins Mill, you had the Collins Bridge. All right, so every one of the canal villages that are close by are very, very similar.
And recall how Indian Orchard has changed throughout the years.
All right, some changes have come in. Of course, at some point, the mills are going to start to change over. What they make is going to change over. And so you had less need for these mills in worker homes, and then there's less need for, especially the Catholic churches, because a lot of mill workers were Catholic. And as they moved away, then the Catholic churches started going downhill too. All right, and the schools would change. There would be less need for schools, but most of the villages are well preserved. So if you go there, a lot is very similar to what it was a long time ago. All right, so in some sense, you're still seeing what you are used to. In another sense, the mill itself has changed drastically. It no longer produces goods like cotton. What it does, it's an artist village now, and a lot of artists have their workstations inside of here. Very important still, and so it's still being looked after, all these mills. There's still a need for a village around it, and hopefully it'll keep succeeding.
Thank you for listening to our Canal Days and our episode on the Indian Orchard Village, and joining us on our journey through the rich history of the Connecticut River Valley. We hope you enjoyed uncovering some of the hidden and overlooked marvels and their fascinating stories that shaped our past in the state of Massachusetts. A special thanks to Robert Camus, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, for sharing his passion and expertise with us. Remember, you can find more information about Robert's tours, book private tours, and explore the Canal Days video and podcast series at holyokecanaltour.org. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, comment, and share. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for future episodes. Don't forget to keep exploring and discovering what is hidden in plain sight all around us. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to tune into our next episode of Canal Days and log into holyokecanaltour.org. Until next time.